Chamber. Senator Payman.
Thank you, Chair. My questions are around the oil product shipments. So just questions to Border Force. Has Border Force investigated whether any oil product shipments to Australia have been in breach of autonomous sanctions regulation with regard to Russian oil content?
Senator Gav Reynolds, the Commissioner of the Australian Border Force. Not to my knowledge, but I'll check with my staff. No.
Have there been any reports or requests to investigate oil product shipments?
No, Senator.
Okay, so I've actually got a copy of a letter dated 22nd of August from Mr. Mark Corrigan, who addressed to Border Force asking them to stop a ship called STI Madison from docking at Botany Bay because it was full of fuel from a refinery that uses Russian oil. Did you guys receive the complaint? If so, how'd you handle it?
Senator, can you just give me that name again, please?
Mark Corrigan.
Senator, I'm not aware of that letter from Mr. Corrigan, so I'll take that on notice.
Okay, because Mr. Corrigan also said that he did receive a response, which was really a no response, but I'll let you check with your team on that. How does Border Force satisfy themselves that oil product shipments are not of Russian origin when they come from a refinery that imports large quantities of Russian crude oil and Russian refined product?
Senator, the Australian Border Force is not responsible for monitoring those oil imports.
So where does your responsibility lie when it comes to those shipments?
It is not in relation to monitoring those shipments.
Okay. So when they're docked up onto our shores, you don't inspect what's in them, you don't check the content of the cargo?
We don't conduct inspections of the oil.
So I guess you won't know that the Danish flag tanker called Torm Emily is on its way to Fremantle in Western Australia carrying fuel that has been processed at the Mangalore oil refinery in India, which is also notorious for using Russian oil as feedstock. Do you know if that's true?
1 minute, please.
No worries.
Senator, it is difficult to determine the exact origin of oil and where it's been refined, so that's not something the Australian Border Force is capable of tracking.
So you don't track it, but you don't inspect what's in the cargo either?
Well, even if we did inspect the cargo, Senator, we'd be unable to determine where the oil has come from through its refining.
So you don't check where these ships are coming from? They just dock up and they just drop things off and you don't get to check where the route of these ships were?
No, Senator. What I'm referring to is that the content of that oil tanker, we may not necessarily be able to determine exactly where that oil has come from.
Well, it's usually from the refinery that, that actually put that, the shipment and sent it on its way. But who would be responsible if it's not the Border Force?
So the question relates, Senator, to when the oil is refined, then it's mixed with other oil products, and therefore that dilutes the origin of that particular oil.
Senator Jared Howard, Deputy Commissioner Strategy and Capability. It's really about we know the country of origin that the ship is left from, and so if for example, if oil has been refined in India and then that ship has left India for Australia, then we know that the shipment has come from there. What's very difficult for us to track is where the oil has come from to be refined in India. So we don't track that the oil has moved from Russia to India, been refined, and then come to Australia. It's just where the point of origin from where the oil has left from.
Well, we do have a log of which refinery it's coming from, and so obviously having information on the refinery, you could then see whether they use Russian oil or not. But I'm just curious why nothing's being done, and if it doesn't fall within the purview of the Australian Border Force, then who is responsible for checking that?
So, Senator, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade has overall responsibility for the monitoring of sanctions.
So would they know whether it's Russian oil that's ending up in our cars in Western Australia as people go to fill, their vehicles with the oil that comes across from other countries?
Well, what I'm offering, Senator, is the sanctions management is the responsibility of DFAT.
Okay. But in terms of receiving the shipment or the tankers, is that your responsibility?
Well, certainly if they're coming into a port in Australia, then yes, they will come into contact with
Do you communicate with
Force.
DFAT in terms of, would they say there's an autonomous sanctions regulation on this tanker, do something about it? What's the process? Do you communicate, or do they do their own thing and you're off doing your own thing?
No, if we receive a referral from the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, then we will act on that referral from DFAT.
And how does that referral go to DFAT in the first place?
The referral from DFAT would come between Department Communications to the Department of Home Affairs.
And so what actions would Border Force usually take?
It would really depend on the nature of the referral, Senator.
Has there been any cases where there's been sanctioned oil that's rocked up on our shores?
Not that I'm aware of, Senator. There's been conversations between the Australian Border Force and Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, but I am unaware of a referral from DFAT to us in relation to sanctioned oil.
Yeah, it's just bizarre.
It comes back, Senator, to my point. It's very difficult for us to know where the oil has come from. So from a pre-refined perspective, pre-country of origin of launch of that oil.
Minister, what's the government going to do about this to make sure that, Russian vessels sanctioned by Australia aren't supplying our vehicles, people on the ground with oil that could potentially benefit Russia in their invasion of Ukraine?
Well, obviously the government's position is clear in relation to Russian oil and products generally. The officials have talked to you about how these sorts of issues are being managed, and if further action is required by government to fulfil our policy objectives, then I'm sure we'll consider that advice.
I understand that it's difficult, but it's just, what's the point of sanctions when we can't really enforce them?
Senator, may I offer, the sanctions relate to crude oil from Russia. The sanctions do not relate to refined oil. And I think the issue is that when the refined oil is coming into Australia, then they don't actually come under the sanctions regime. But if it was crude oil coming directly to Australia, that's a different story.
And Senator Payman, we've obviously attempted to help you as much as we can on this, but I understand DFAT is the sanctions regulator, and they may be able to give you some more assistance
No
there.
worries. Thank you, Minister. I just think we've just identified a loophole. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Payman. Senator Shoebridge.